Our preacher on this St. Andrew's Day is the Reverend Sarah Robbins-Cole.
Thank you for inviting me to preach at your patronal festival.
Thank you very much for accepting our invitation to be our guest preacher on this important day in the life of our parish.
I am honored to be asked and to take some time to think about what it means to be the Church of St. Andrew. And I also want to mention that it's been a privilege to work with St. Andrew's during this pandemic and figuring out our new way of being church during this challenging time. So I want to say at the outset that I asked Adrian what I should preach about, and his answer was about 10 minutes. So I've got 10 minutes to tell you what I'm thinking. I don't know how many of you are second born in your family like I am, but if you are, you know what it's like. No baby books with a lock of hair from your first haircut lovingly fixed to a page. Your parents probably, at best, have a vague sense of the date of your first steps and first words. If you ask them, they'll probably say, "Of course we remember. It was sometime after your first birthday and before your third." You probably don't even have a baby's first Christmas ornament unless your parents were super on the ball. So, if you are second born, welcome to the St. Andrew's Club. We are the pain in the neck, younger siblings who don't like to play by the rules because if we did, we wouldn't get noticed. We can be risk takers, pushy, and yet incredibly creative. We get bored easily, and yet we have great senses of humor. Unlike those firstborn siblings who are overachieving, rule-obeying, on time, people-pleasing, know-it-all, organized, natural-born leader types. Did I mention that my husband Adrian is a firstborn? Apparently, birth order has largely been discredited in the world of psychology, but let's just conveniently forget that for now. So why am I calling all of us second-borns members of this esteemed club, the St. Andrew's Club? Well, St. Andrew was the younger brother of St. Peter. So if you thought you had it bad, can you imagine being St. Peter's younger brother? St. Peter was probably Jesus's closest friend. He's the foundation of the church and even the first bishop of the church. And he is memorialized by the great St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City. Peter seems to always be in the forefront of Jesus's life and teaching. He's the Prince William, Prince Charles, and Queen Elizabeth, to the Prince Harry's, Prince Andrew's, and Princess Margaret's of the world. However, I would like you to know that despite Andrew being second-born, he is integral to the story of the Gospels. In early Byzantine tradition, he is known as protokletos, Greek for first called, the first called by Jesus to follow him. Andrew is also the person in John's Gospel who finds the young lad with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish that Jesus takes and breaks and feeds the 5,000. And Andrew, along with Philip, the 2 disciples with Greek names rather than Hebrew names, these 2 are the ones who bring the Gentiles who want to see Jesus to Jesus for him to meet. After the crucifixion, it is said that Andrew brought Christianity to Romania, Ukraine, and Russia. Although Andrew is not central to the story like Peter, Andrew is certainly not peripheral. Even after Andrew's death, he remained influential. In the 7th century at the Council of Whitby, the Celtic Christians felt that St. Peter, the central saint of Roman Catholicism, was eclipsing their local cardinal saint, Saint Columba. So they decided that they would choose the first called apostle, St. Andrew, to gain at least equal footing with the Roman Church. And then there's a legend that in a battle against the English, the Scottish saw the distinctive cross of St. Andrew appear in the skies, a sign that the Scottish would be victorious over the English. And then there's another legend that the relics of St. Andrew were brought under supernatural guidance from their resting place in Constantinople to the modern town of St. Andrews in Scotland. When I think about Andrew, the second born, yet first called, I think of a meme that I read recently. No one is you, and that is your superpower. No one is you, that is your superpower. Peter, being the firstborn, was the natural born leader, the know-it-all, and the overachiever. But without Andrew's outgoing personality that said yes to Jesus first, who knows if Peter would have followed Jesus on his own? Without Andrew going out to find the boy with the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fish, who knows what would have happened at the feeding of the 5,000? Without Andrew speaking to those Gentiles who were trying to find Jesus, who knows if they would have ever met him? Things could have turned out differently. And what would this church, St. Andrew's in Wellesley, be like under another name? Is there something about being St. Andrew's that makes you more willing to engage in the work of Jesus without hesitation? Is there some way that being St. Andrew's made you more resourceful, more curious, more hospitable to strangers, more willing to spread the transforming love of Christ in the world? To end, I want to make mention of the African-American spiritual, There Is a Balm in Gilead. There are only 2 names mentioned, Peter and Paul. But Andrew and the rest of us are by no means left out. Listen for your name. Sometimes I feel discouraged and think my work's in vain, but then the Holy Spirit revives my soul again. If you cannot preach like Peter, if you cannot pray like Paul, you can tell the love of Jesus and say he died for all. You, Adrian, Ted, Cam, Mark, Mia, Amanda, and Margaret, you can tell the love of Jesus and say he died for all. How are you being called with all the wonderful qualities you have as firstborn, middle child, only child, second, third, fourth child? How do you in your life tell the love of Jesus? You are part of the story because you are part of St. Andrew's story. Because right there in the mission statement of St. Andrew's Wellesley are these very words. We are an Episcopal church that celebrates and shares the transforming love of Christ. Thanks be to God.
Thanks very much, Sarah, for that
Thank you.
inspiring sermon. Thank you for being our guest preacher.
Thank you.